welcome to this week's Confessions from Lost Souls. I am your host, Sir RaRa. Well, more like Sir RaRa, however you want to pronounce it. But anyways, yes, we're going to get into this week's Confessions right away. This is episode 2. And let's see here. It looks like this week's Confessions is from a girl. Oh, it looks like this is Megan's Confessions. Let's see what kind of backstory we got on her. Alrighty, let's get into this. So, as I said last time, let's be grabbing your stuff and get something to drink and some snacks, and yeah, let's do this. Alright, here we go. Megan is cleaning up the convenience store where she is working late one night. It's cold outside and the wind is blowing snow everywhere, but it is not snowing. You know that feeling that you have when the wind's blowing and it's not snowing, but you think it's blowing, or should I say you think it's snowing and it's not, and it's really just blowing. And yeah, that's what's going on. That's a lot of owings. Kind of tongue twists you there. Anyways, she walks through the store and shuts the lights off, you know, like she's closing, and is getting ready to walk out the front door when she hears some ruffling in the back room. Megan turns and looks into the darkness. Jude, who is Megan's mother, pulls up to a big Gothic-looking house on top of a hill of the town of Edgewater. Jude parks her car amongst a group of 2 other cars. She recognizes these vehicles. Jude gets out of the car and begins walking on the white gravel that leads to the steps of the front door, with vines and beautiful white roses leading up to the steps. She approached the front door and rang the doorbell of the huge old house. Victoria answered the door and asked her to join her and the others in the parlor room. Jude entered the parlor room and saw the 2 other women near her age that she was well familiar with. One sitting on the love seat was Renee, a red-haired older woman who had skin like the snow, and the other was an older woman named Lucy. Lucy was a couple years older than the rest of them, being almost 60, but she held up her age very well. She seemed to still look a young 30. No one knew how she kept it so well. Little did they know, fresh virgin blood will keep your skin that young. Victoria sat down with a tray of hot tea and her cigarettes. She grabbed her pack of Virginia Slims and she lit one up. Victoria looked at the women and stated, "Y'all know why you're here, correct?" The 3 women stared at her with what looked like fright. Victoria puffed her cigarette again and stated, "As you may have heard, Barry and Megan have been suspicious for some time since my psychic party recently that you all forgot to attend." Renee interrupted with a glass of wine in her hand and a cigarette in the other and said, "Well, with all due respect, Victoria, you aren't the best to be around, or trusting for that matter." Victoria glared at her as she blew out cigarette smoke in her face. and said, "That's all in the past." Lucy interrupted and said, "Yeah, and so is what is about ready to bite us in the ass very hard." Renee and Lucy are kind of English, just a tad. Lucy interrupted, as I just said, "Yeah, it's going to bite us in the ass very hard." Can't believe I just read that again. What the fuck? Anyways, Renee interrupted and mentioned, "Are you talking about what happened over 30 years ago?" The women all turned and looked at her. Victoria interrupted the silence by changing the subject to Jude's daughter, Megan. "So how is Megan and Tom these days? How is the baby coming along?" Jude looked at her and lit a cigarette. "She's doing great. Tom is doing okay. He finally has a job where he can be home with her now." Lucy interrupted, "It's about damn time that man started working a hard living and taking care of the woman." Jude said, "Well, it's been hard for Megan since her first incident, but now everything seems to be going along fine. She should be popping out soon in the next couple of months." Victoria stated, "Great. We can't wait for the arrival." Jude looked at her with fright and said, What did you just say?" Victoria says, "We can't wait for the arrival of her baby, silly." The girls all sip their tea as Jude stares at them. Megan stares out into the darkness of the convenience store. Megan sits her bag down and begins walking through the aisles towards the back office room. She unlocks the office door and walks into the office and turns the light on. She looks around the room and doesn't see anything. She turns, and I just lost my place. She turns around to walk out of the office and turns the light switch off. She closes the door behind her and goes to lock the door. She hears the ruffling sound again, this time coming from somewhere behind her. She stops and breathes. A dark shadow appears behind her and starts running to her left down an aisle of clearance Halloween costumes. The wind outside sounds to her as if it has gotten stronger, therefore causing the windows to creak. Creak. And that sound you hear through the cracks of every building with just a whisper of a breeze from the wind. It was completely dark in the aisle that she was in. The only light that existed was the light from the parking lot lamps shining dimly through the windows of the store. Megan thought, if she could just make it to the front and get out, she would be fine. She began looking for her keys so that she could unlock the front doors when she got to them, but her pockets and hands were empty. She mumbled, "Shit, shit, shit," but not that many times. I kind of didn't figure out which one I wanted. She had realized that she had dropped the keys in front of the fucking office. She turned around and started back down the dark aisle that led back to the office and shivered. She began walking slowly down the aisle into the dark, hearing nothing but the sound of wind outside. I lost my place. Fuck my life. Give me just 1 second here. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, yes. Outside. She got to the corner and saw the office door and began to run to the office door. She looked all around the floor and couldn't find the keys at all. Megan mumbled another shit, shit, shit. She was bent over and she heard her keys jingle behind her. Ding, ding, ding. She turned around real fast and the shadow rushed her and she fell against the wall. She got up and ran back down the Halloween aisle, and the darkness was closing in on her, clawing its way like a cougar down the floor of the aisle. It grabbed her by the feet and it consumed her. Across the street was a woman staring out her window, staring into the dark convenience store as Megan's screams filled the air with silence. We'll be right back. Welcome back, kitties. Anyways, fucking mask itches. But ignore me. Crazy. Ow. Megan pulled into the driveway of her gray house that was decorated with shrubs and a few lily flowers along the side of the house. Megan got out of her car and walked up gracefully to the steps of her house. Megan opened the front door and walked in to greet Tom, her husband, who was 5 years younger than her. Tom grabbed the bags from her hand to assist her, and she thanked him. Megan said, "Work was horrible today. Why does everybody have to come in at the same goddamn time?" Tom said, "Well, honey, I told you that you should be off your feet and taking time off until the baby comes." Megan said, "Tom, we really can't afford it until the baby has to come." Tom said, I just don't want you to put any more stress on you or the baby." Megan said, "Don't worry, I'll be plenty fine. I'm a survivor." Tom mentioned, "I know you are, honey." Megan looked into the living room and stared. There was a young woman sitting on her couch, looking directly at her. Meanwhile, Tom in the background was asking, Honey? Megan? Honey, are you okay? Megan? Megan began walking into the living room, ignoring Tom's pleas. And as she got halfway there, she came up to the woman sitting there. She got closer to her. The woman had blood all over her head. As Megan stepped into the living room, Tom grabbed her arm and yelled, "Megan!" Megan looked at him and fainted. The previous owners of Megan and Tom's house were a lovely young couple named Ted and Martha. This scene in particular was focused on the living room of the house. Martha was lying in a pool of blood, yelling God's name, screaming bloody murder. Ted was standing in the dining room with a gun in his hand. Martha, covered in blood, screamed at him, screamed his name. Ted was standing in the dining room with a gun in his hand. And I just said that, didn't I? Fuck. You knew he was standing in the dining room with a gun in his hand. Anyways, Ted pulled the trigger and mumbled, "Begone, demon!" and shoots Martha in the head once, and then turns the gun to his mouth and blows his head out. Martha laid there silent against the corner of the living room, with blood running down the side of the wall out of her bullet hole, and even more blood pooling out of her vagina area, covering the living room floor in red color. Megan wakes up at the couch in her living room with Tom and Jude standing over her. Jude asks Megan, "Are you all right, child?" Megan says, "Yeah, I'm fine. What happened?" Jude says, "It seems you had quite a spell there. Tom said you were talking in the kitchen 1 minute, and the next you were zoned out, passed out in the dining room." Megan mentioned, "I'll be fine." Tom stated, "Well, it's a good thing, though, because while you were passed out, the doctor made a house call and checked up on you, and come to find out, we're having twins, honey." Megan looked at Tom with fright, and then looked at Jude, and turned to stare at the wall. I'm gonna smoke you out. 7 devils all around me. 7 devils in my house. So baby, baby, I will come this morning. I'll be dead before the day is done. 7 devils all around you. 7 devils in your house. See, I was dead, but I woke up this morning, and I'll be dead before the day is done. There's a knock on the door of Barry's apartment. The door is unlocked, so Alexander walks into the apartment. Barry comes out of the bathroom and looks at him. Alex says, "Where have you been?" Barry says, "What are you talking about, dude? And what are you doing here? I thought we weren't meeting until tomorrow night." Alex interrupted and stated, "It is tomorrow night. What the hell is wrong with you?" Barry walks into his bedroom and sits on his bed and lights a cigarette. Alex follows him into the bedroom and Barry says, "Sorry, man, I haven't been sleeping good lately." Alex sat down next to him, looked at him, and said, "Well, you got me for the night, so it'll be all better now." Barry looked at him and smiled. Alex moved in, and him and Barry began kissing. And the plot thickens, right? A couple hours later, Barry's phone rang, and it was Megan. Barry answered the phone. "Hello." Megan said, "Barry, we need to talk soon. Something happened." Barry looked over at Alex, who was passed out, and stated, "Yeah, sure, when you wanna." Megan asked, "Can I come over now, or is it too late?" Barry looked at Alex again and said, "Yeah, sure, it's cool. We just gotta keep it down." Megan said, "Good, I'll be there in 15. Barry put his phone back down on the side table next to his bed and kissed Alex on the cheek and got up and closed his bedroom door. Megan rushed out of the house faster than she could say to Tom where she was going. As soon as Tom saw her pull out of the driveway, he picked up his phone and dialed a number. A woman answered on the other line and said, "Are you ready?" Tom replied with, "Yeah, she just left, so we have plenty of time." Tom put the phone on the coffee table and heard some shuffling below him. Tom walked through the house to the basement door. The shuffling noise got louder. Tom opened the basement door and stared into the darkness. He turned on the basement light, and it flickered, of course. The shuffling quieted down for a little bit, though. Tom started walking down the steps of the basement, and when he arrived at the bottom of the stairs, He turned on the light with the cord that was hanging down. As soon as he pulled the light cord, the spirit of Ted appeared, and Tom jumped and hit the light bulb with his hand, causing it to spin around and flicker. Ted charged him and screamed, "We have to kill them all!" Tom screamed, "Ah!" And right then and there, Ted possesses Tom. And that's all we got, kitties, for this week. So yeah, come back next week, if maybe. And the episode 3 next week is about, it looks like, Gabriel. So we're going to find out about Gabriel next week. And that should be kind of exciting. Don't you think so? Kind of felt short this week, but not really. Got deep into detail there for a minute. But everything's good. But anyways, so yeah, that's all we got. So peace out, and do unto others as they do to you.